maybe it was bureaucracy or whatever, but it wasn't fixed. And it was pumping raw sewage I think it was like over 300,000 gallons at that point from Monday to Saturday.
Hello and welcome back to the Fat Dad Fishing Show. I'm your host, Rich Natoli, back again with another show on a new topic for us. It kind of goes with a theme that's been popping up over the past few years, and it has to do with the health of the fisheries, the environment, the ecology, and not just about a specific species tonight, but about an entire region that affects most of the, well, I'm going to just say everybody on the east coast of the U.S., whether or not you fish in the Chesapeake or not. It affects you. It affects the fish that you fish for. So we're gonna talk about that today. I have Thomas Ahrens coming on from Fishing The DMV podcast. If you haven't seen or listened to it, you're missing out. So he's going to be on in a couple minutes. I'm going to run real quick through the sponsors before we get to that, but we're going to focus a little bit on just what has been happening to the Chesapeake, the pollution, really the devastation that happens to that fishery every single year, not just for fishing, but for crabbing as well. But then we're also going to talk fishing because, we can't go through an episode without talking about how to catch some fish in a specific area. So really interested to hear what he has to say. And by the way, he covers freshwater as well. So it's not just a saltwater or brackish show tonight. We are open for all topics. And with that, let's jump into the sponsors. Number one is Great Bay Outfitters on Radio Road in Tuckerton, New Jersey. It's the kayak outfitter shop that I go to. It's the one that I use. It's the one that you should be using. It's one of the largest in the region, and it is by far the best in the region. I've been to many. And Paul and his team do a great job, and they have on-the-water kayak trials. So when people ask what kayak should I get, it's really an involved conversation. Everybody always throws out whatever they own because they think they have the best. The answer is whichever one feels best to use, and the only way to figure it out is get on the water. Paul can do that for you. So head on down there, set up a time with him, and you can get on Crescent, Native, Old Town. Get out there in the lagoon. He's got the powered versions, pedal, paddle, whatever you need. So check that out. Radio Road in Tuckerton, New Jersey. Then we have Quad State Tune. Kevin Driscoll is your contact with Quad State if you have a Toyota truck. We're talking the Tacoma, 4Runner, Tundra, Lexus 460, 470. Third gen Tacoma especially, where it has those gear hunting issues or the gear seeking issues where it doesn't quite feel like it's in the right gear. He's got the tunes for your engine. It will improve the throttle response, the torque, and the horsepower. If you don't need it, he will tell you. If you do need it, he will tell you exactly what it'll do for you. You can reach him at 446335975. And then me for real estate, I cover, well, that's my job. This is not my job. My job is selling real estate, buying and selling on behalf of my clients in southeastern Pennsylvania, mainly residential, do a little light commercial now and then. So if you need anything or if you know anyone that needs any help, 267-270-1145. And I just want to say, you know me for fishing. You could know me for real estate as well. I do have a very small real estate YouTube channel that I just started. You could look for that. It's Natoli Real Estate. So you could check that out. All right. We're going to announce later in the show who's coming on next week, but we'll worry about that later. I'm going to bring on Thomas right now and welcome you to the show. Good to see you, man.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I've been trying so hard to figure out who I could have come on to talk about what's happening in the Chesapeake. And for me, it all started when the latest sewage leak started. And it like nobody's really covering it. And all these people were really loud about it. And I wanted to be loud about it, but I wanted to talk to somebody who maybe knew a little bit more or was a little bit more personally affected by it. And I couldn't get anyone to come on. They're like, it's my off season. And I'm just on the social media, just keeping in touch with people. And I'm like, come on. And then I was listening to your podcast and actually watching your YouTube channel. Like, I bet you he'd come on. So thank you for responding and coming on. I think it's an important issue.
It really is, and it's not getting attention. The fact that my channel, I mean, I am not Mr. Beast with what I have going on, but I was trending for a while because I was the only one that covered it for a hot minute, was mind blowing to me. When it is a big deal. What went down?
Yeah, it's insanity, and we'll get into it. But we'll get into exactly what happened most recently, but I don't even think it's the most severe thing that's been going on, or even will go on this year with the Chesapeake. And it's just a continuous one after the other series of ecological hits. And you're starting to see it in the fishery. I mean, the crabs, I mean, everyone talks about the Maryland crabs. Well, those guys, I don't know how they make their living anymore, because these crabs are getting destroyed along with the environment. But you know what? Before we jump into that, why don't you tell everybody about Fishing the DMV, so that everybody, in case they're not familiar, so they know where to find you and everything.
Yeah, if you guys don't know, Fishing the DMV kind of started out kind of being a play on a name where if you grew up in Northern Virginia, Maryland, you called that area the DMV, which is the DC, Maryland, Virginia tri-state area. And so I started out just covering fishing from about DC and everything that happened in Maryland and Virginia. And it slowly expanded to where it's Pennsylvania, the Chesapeake Bay, the Eastern Shore, all the way down to North Carolina. I'm on the Freshwater Advisory Board for the state of Maryland. And I have like 4 or 5 really good friends that are in the Virginia Department of Wildlife Resources. And I think I've put out 600 episodes in 4 years. And we just keep cranking them out because I don't know how to stop.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes a lot though, man. It takes a lot to do that. I mean, I struggle to keep up and do one a week.
It is. It's an addiction, but it's also, I like people, and there's so many fascinating stories that it's kind of like, I think it culminated in me being able to break the Potomac sewage leak. Is there's so many small local stories that are fun that you won't hear on a big stage, which is sad.
Right. Yeah. And they're important because, you know, like the Potomac leak, I mean, that the impact of that is going to be felt not just up where the leak was, but all the way down through the mouth of the Chesapeake, all the way over into the Delaware River. It's going to make its way up the coast and all of that. Yeah. So anyone, if you're not following him, I would, if you like this channel, you will love his. You know, I would love to say that mine's better. It's not. You got to be following Thomas on his. It's just a wealth of information on, and yes, you have a lot of volume, but you can find whatever your niche is, it's being covered. And I do appreciate that about what you do. It's funny. People say, well, what YouTube channels do you watch? You know, who do you follow for fishing? I follow like 3 people. And that's it, because I can't stand most of it. It's just like self-aggrandizing stuff. You know what I mean? It's all for clout, and yours definitely is not. And I really appreciate that. So I think you'd vibe well with the people that like this show as well. So people should be checking that out. I do want to mention, I'm going to try to keep up with the chat. We have a dual stream. I don't know if you're streaming to dual locations when you do it, but it comes out in both a vertical and a horizontal format. So I can't see all the comments. I can see more in the StreamYard platform than I can see in the YouTube on my left. But I know I miss it every week. So we might be getting ready.
Yeah. I wish StreamYards, I mean, even because I as you do you pay so much for StreamYards, and it doesn't bring comments over from like Instagram. You can't do anything to TikTok. Sometimes Facebook is hit or miss. It's frustrating when it feels like they're the only platform that's legitimate at this point.
Yeah. I don't even know what to say. All I know is that everybody's out trying to get our money, and nothing is getting that much. I have to say StreamYard has gotten a lot better in the last year, but it's also very expensive.
Yeah.
It's very expensive to run it. So yeah. So let's jump in. Let's start first off. Let's talk about this Potomac sewage leak for those that are unaware of exactly what happened. How would you summarize it in the most graphic way possible?
A shit show.
Yeah.
But yeah, for people that need context, because if you guys haven't watched, I'll try to cliff note the 2 episodes I did with the River Keepers. I mean, where's my timeline I put up here? So Monday, January 19th, there's a pipe break, and that's what people thought. And
Which is common. It's common that it happens.
it's common that it happens. The local jurisdiction, basically, just so I don't get in trouble with it, basically said everything was fine. And I started to get messages through because that's in my backyard, like, hey, did you hear about this break? Did you hear about this break? And then it's Tuesday and it's Wednesday. And then Thursday morning, I had like 20 messages being like, this pipe isn't fixed. And so I called up the river keepers, which, guys, if you don't know, that's a whole other topic about how important the river keepers are. And I called up the Potomac chapter and I was like, hey, what's going on with this? And he said, dude, it's not just a broken pipe. It is an artery that's gashed and it's pumping into the river. So I get him on the show and we discuss it further that they never fixed the pipe. Maybe it was bureaucracy or whatever, but it wasn't fixed. And it was pumping raw sewage I think it was like over 300,000 gallons at that point from Monday to Saturday.
Yep.
And the context there, because, this was the biggest snowstorm to hit the East Coast in the history of forever, allegedly. And so that was coming down Friday evening into Saturday morning while the pipe was busted. And so all these factors working together, cut to Super Bowl Sunday when they get this semi-contained. And then because so many people flushed during Super Bowl Sunday, it blew out all of the pumps again. Mm-hmm. Now you might be like, well, then how would they contain this? Well, on the Potomac River, at the portion of the Potomac River, which is above DC that this happened, there's this thing called the C&O Canal. It's a historic canal. George Washington put it in. It runs basically from Washington, D.C. all the way up towards Paw Paw. They had to use the historic canal as an open sewage system to where they pumped raw sewage into the canal and let it go down about a mile, maybe 2 miles, and then pump it back into Blue Plains. That was their system. And not to do the fear porn thing, because it is raw sewage. I was a kid when there was the DuPont mercury spill in the Shenandoah River, killed 80% of all life on the river. That was actually really bad. This is fecal matter and stuff, which is a problem. I'm not saying that. The big part of this story was the response by the government and how long it took them, and the fact that they never had a fail-safe in plan. Right. This was the major artery for all sewage in Maryland to go to the plant. And there was no plan of, if it breaks, what we do. That didn't exist, which is insanely wild to me. That an oil rig has some kind of plan. They made like 3 movies about what happens or what do you do. You didn't have a plan for this in 2026? How?
Yeah, well, so the way I look at it is this. You have contingency plans and disaster recovery plans for business, because business is run by people that understand how to run things. Government and utilities are not necessarily business people. They're just people. Mm-hmm. And
that's a good point.
Yeah. So I wasn't surprised when I saw it, but I was getting surprised with how long it kept going. I mean, it got to the point where Trump had to jump in and do his dirty tweeting, just saying, if you're not going to fix it, I'm going to send in the federal government to fix it. And then they fixed it. Right. Then at that point, they got serious about it, but he had to threaten them in order, because nobody wants Trump to send anybody anywhere, apparently, at least of all Maryland. So, I think that might have been a catalyst for something, but at least the reporting started to get better on it at that point. And I think it ended about a week after that, if I'm not.
The reporting or the disaster?
I think it was like almost fully contained and fixed within a week or so after that, right?
So that is, what is your definition of fixed and contained? Because there are still numerous spills, because they are backstopping it against a canal that was built during
They're still doing that?
Yeah, there's still leaks. They're still using it. They don't have it. So their fixed is contained in the canal, which was another issue that they're trying to fast track. Is at first they said they wouldn't have it fixed until September, which meant you would have 2 miles of raw sewage next to Washington, D.C. in the heat of the summer.
Oh, lovely.
And then people started thinking, like, what about the bot flies and the mosquitoes? Is malaria going to come back? What about the smell? Because depending on where the wind blows, like when the accident happened, it caked your vehicle. It caked your clothes. It was not nice. And so I think that really expedited their stress of trying to get it contained. But there is still sewage in the canal. They're hoping now to have it done, knock on wood, by mid-April, late May, pumping the sewage completely out of the canal. What are the ecological effects of this? Who knows? Again, is it Chernobyl? Is it a nuclear spill? Absolutely not. Do we know how bad it's going to be? I don't know. Like, especially near DC. I know I've at least had the message, like, how far down is it going to go to Quiet Creek, past Mattawoman into Chesapeake Bay? Some of it will, 100%. I'm not as worried that far down first as immediately around DC. How much of that stuff is going to be sticking to the bottom? What happens if you start digging to fix the Woodrow Wilson Bridge and you turn all that lovely stuff up in a couple of years?
Well, and then, there's really two things. There's the fact that it's literally raw. It's literally toilet to Chesapeake or to Potomac, which is an issue. Whatever gets flushed is literally coming out as it was flushed.
Yeah.
But the other issue is it's putting a lot of biological matter into the water. And it's a whole separate thing, because now you start talking about algae blooms.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So as the water does heat up, that's one of the biggest concerns with pollution that's ongoing. Think about, well, on top of what we already had with all the rain and all the snow and all the runoff, running off all the pesticides and everything, those are some of the things that lead to the algae blooms that are going to happen in the Chesapeake, which ends up killing off the seagrass and all that work that people have done to get the oysters back, the crabs. And what it does is it then depresses the dissolved oxygen levels. So I think, what is it? A striped bass needs 50 milligrams per liter.
About, yeah.
Yeah, and it pushes, but once it hits 2, it becomes lethal. So the dead zone, which has been shrinking in the chest, I don't know if people know this. There's an average dead zone in the Chesapeake because of dissolved oxygen levels. Averages about 1 1/3 cubic miles, and it's shrunk over recent years down to about 1/2 of a cubic mile. But all it takes is for this oxygen level to drop again from algae blooms, and it's going to go right back up. And that just pushes all the fish into areas where they should not be.
Yeah, and then you compact with climate change and stuff, because that's one thing. If you listen to some of the big striped bass studies Maryland's put out there, and people up near your area, where the water is warming. I mean, we have shrimp in the bay. Like, shrimping is becoming a thing finally. We have a great puppy drum and speck trout and weak fish. There are tarpon that now live on the eastern shore tip of Virginia. They come every summer now. There's a biologist I talked to a month ago from North Carolina that thinks in the next 50 years, we could see snook eventually up here if things continue. So it's a yes to this and also this, because I think what's fun when you talk to biologists in long form, it's like, it's never one thing. There's never you point to just fix this. It's a death by 1,000 cuts. And also it is like herbicides. Like, there are people that spray near a quiet creek, that they see the grass at their boat dock and they're like, ew, this is bad. And they start dumping stuff on their dock. That's a problem, because first off, that's illegal. Please don't do that. But how much of that stuff washes down and starts killing it? Or the blue cats. I had on a biologist last year, maybe it was 2 years ago, and they did a lot of dissections of young of year blue cats, and they found SAV in their system, that they eat it. And so how much has that hurt it too? Like, it's a lot of bad stuff that it's one more thing, and eventually the ecosystem buckles.
Yeah, and it's not. So again, the sewage thing was the thing that I kind of prompted me to say, well, I should probably try to get an episode together. But there are a lot of things. Like, think about one of the biggest violators for causing damage to the Chesapeake is the Conowingo Dam. Just itself, because the releases and the high flow events, they push all that sediment down, and then you get all that turbulence in the water from the high flow events where they're releasing, and it just stirs all that water up. It drops the oxygen levels. It kills the grasses, or at least stunts the grasses, so you don't have all of that. It can kill the oysters, and that's one of the things, and that goes on constantly. And that's one thing that nobody really talks about, but there have been big events in 2011, 18, and 19, where they just said, it's the dam. The dam screwed us. All of us down south got screwed because of the dam. And, people don't even realize that, they just accept it as a place where you can fish for striped bass.
And Conowingo is so fascinating because there are things that you can do, but they don't want to do it because it costs money. Like I've heard people on both ends of the spectrum, like we should just remove the dam. It's like, well, that would create so many issues because if you remove that dam, there'd be a lot more sediment. That'd be just as expensive and all that stuff. But you could do different things to help aerate the water because there's a lot of lakes in the TVA system that do that aerate the water because as you pull water from the lower piece of like Bugs Island and you dump that into Gaston, if you didn't do something like that to aerate, you would just kill the lake down below. So there are different things in theory they could do. But again, it comes down to Benjamins. Who wants to flip the bill? And because that lake, and we'll just call it Conowingo Lake or Reservoir, Maryland, Pennsylvania, there's that argument of who has to flip the bill for it because no one wants to do it. Right. Which, again, we come back to it. It's bureaucracy, baby. And no one wants to be the one holding the purse.
Yeah, and it's a big thing. I mean, the Conowingo, just for full disclosure, it used to do a much better job at the sediment clearing, but it can't anymore. They need to update it and they need to do all that stuff, and they don't do any of it. And again, there are people that are going to be listening to this show are like, yeah, but I love fishing there. Yeah, that's great, but it's not helping because it's the sediment that's getting through there. It's destroying it. I mean, think about how all of this impacts the flats. The flats used to be the place to go. Not anymore. Why do you think?
It was, and this usually comes down to it's the government. It just is. I think it is. If you look at the titles where it's like it's the Conowingo Dam's fault, it's an inanimate object. The issue is when it comes to budgeting, they keep kicking the can down the road. The dam did work and did do its correction. It did do what it was supposed to do. And then when it needed upkeep, it needed refurbing, it needs some stuff. They're like, you know what? That we don't want to do that. Let's just put that money somewhere else. And now they're going to be blaming the dam. This always comes down to either inept government or not using the budget. Bugs Island, I keep bringing that up because I just recorded an episode earlier. That dam, that lake was built during D-Day. That's how old that lake is. It hasn't been upkept in about 50 years. That's an ecological problem that's going to happen when you have a dam that's damn near 100 years old that hasn't had a lot of work done to it. Right. So a lot of our infrastructure, because there's no new lakes or dams being built, we are going to have a reckoning when it comes to a lot of this stuff because it's not going to live forever and definitely without us putting work into it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't see that happening, at least at a state level. And I get it, right? And Maryland doesn't want to pay for it. I get it. Pennsylvania doesn't want to pay for it. I get it. Well, somebody's going to have to pay for it because it is. And to me, it does make sense that it would be a federal project because the Chesapeake, as an example, is not just one state, two state. It's literally the entire, it feeds the entire ecosystem on the entire East Coast of the United States, all the way up to Massachusetts. They're affected by the fish that come out of there, the menhaden, all the way down into Florida, down into the Keys. You know, it seems to me like the concern should be federal. But again, do we really trust that they're going to do anything right? I don't. But maybe they'll try.
I mean, you said it with the menhaden. Like if you want to go full Epstein's Island, it's the menhaden rabbit hole going down that thing with omega-3. Yeah. It's whose pocket's getting lined. How is this still a thing? Is there a Canadian pharmaceutical company that's running all this stuff? How many congressmen, senators are in the back pocket? I mean, you can go down a Reddit rabbit hole with that thing.
Oh yeah, and it's pretty well documented, and you know, it's fun. I'm not in Maryland, so I'm not afraid of Omega, and this platform's not big enough to be afraid of them. I'll just tell you. I mean, you could see that. I mean, there are facts. Like you could see whose pocket's being lined, and it's everybody. I mean, and you always hear, well, you know, Trump's going to do something. I'm not so sure that Trump's pocket's not being lined at this point because he backed off real quick once he made a quote unquote deal. I mean, the amount of money that is coming from Omega is, and not just Omega, but Omega and the satellite companies associated with that industry is just insanity. And they can pretty well buy, and it's proven they can buy off anybody because everybody's been bought off.
Yep. And if you guys don't know, like I made the comparison on the show, it's not a 1-for-1, but just think big pharma. Look at the virus of unspecified origins, if we could say that, so we don't get dinged on YouTube. Yeah. look at how much money was made, and look at if they have to, they'll take and eat the penalty of $1 billion because they made $1 trillion. They don't care, and that's what you're dealing with Omega. And as fun as it is, and morally to be virtuous, you got to understand the evil that you're dealing with, and it'll take a bad thing happening, like the pipe breaking, for people to be like, oh wait, there's a problem. It's like that's just human nature. Once there is that meme or that trending view of a pipe pumping raw sewage, then people will care. And it's sad, but that's just what the reality is of being human. Yeah.
Here's a comment it's very hard to get funds for maintenance. It's much easier to get funds for emergencies. 100%.
Yeah.
It's 100% true. It's sad, but it's true. But I think the point that I'm trying to make is we have emergencies every year. Mm-hmm. They're just not talked about. The runoff just from Pennsylvania, the runoff when we have a lot of rain and we have a lot of flooding, in and of itself, it creates huge algae blooms and fish kills because of people that are getting non-natural lawn treatments. Mm-hmm. And it's not just the farmers. It's actually more, I think, the suburban homeowners like myself who are putting chemicals on their lawn and it's just washing into the watersheds.
The farmers will always be the blame. They're the thing you point at and say this is the boogeyman. But if you talk to anybody, a river keeper, a water keeper, any conservation organization, those farmers worked their butts off for years because the stigma was on them to make agriculturally conservative movements with their property to make sure that they minimize runoff with how they farm. But if you get if you run a let's say you're building houses and you're like, you know what, I could do all this or I could cut a corner. When you have new construction, it's crazy when you look at a satellite image of new construction and you look at the color of the water. You don't get that color from a farm. And the fertilizer that they're putting on farms is nowhere near the same amount of chemicals that go into new construction developments, let alone the sediment from all that up-tilled earth that happens. Because that type of farming doesn't happen very much anymore. It used to, where you completely uproot all the soil. They're very good about that nowadays. But when you're building a new construction site, if you've ever seen one of those, and it rains, that's all just raw sediment dumping into the water, let alone, all the different types of fertilizer that's going into the system as well.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. The big thing that people don't think about is just the sediment. Because it pulls up, it can pull up heavy metals. You think about the coal mines and the ash, seeping into the water. All of that sediment, and then it brings in higher nitrogen levels, and it all works to either create algae blooms or depress dissolved oxygen. And dissolved oxygen is quite often the key to where you find fish. You can't find them if there's no dissolved oxygen.
And then you have the war on SAV, which is something I cover with autism on my channel because
the submerged aquatic vegetation, right?
Yeah, because so you'll have like Eurasian milfoil or hydrilla, which basically will live anywhere, and a straight line person be like, it's an invasive, you must get rid of it no matter what. On the flip side, it clears up the water. It does the job of straining and actually incorporating oxygen. And you get people like up in Connecticut where they're trying to make it law that all grasses are invasive and we need to spray all of it. Candlewood is a big story up there where they oversprayed, put too many grass carp. And then they tried to start doing this in tidal water, which got a lawsuit brought up because you're not supposed to put herbicide into a tidal or, an estuary.
Right.
But again, the reason I incorporate that into the Chesapeake is its culture. We understand that, and I would even could make an argument that maybe some invasives are it's a necessary evil, especially if you don't have a good way to target them. Nuking the whole system is not the best thing. But Sarah, who's a stay-at-home mom, all she knows is grass bad. And so she will dump stuff on her dock because she's not educated enough to know, like, yes, this is bad, but it's at least filtering, it's protecting, it's oxygenating. And we don't educate people enough on this stuff to have those nuanced conversations.
Right. And you could look at it. You could look at a lot of different things. There are certain species of carp which, people don't like, just to take fish and they're like, oh, kill them all. Well, actually that carp's not doing anything. They all think that all the carp jump, they're jumping out of the water. And then the other, like snakeheads is a great example. Yeah. They're going to destroy everything. Well, I'm looking at local streams near me that have snakeheads in them, big ones. And man, tons of smallmouth. And more smallmouth than when I was little. When I was a kid, I fished these same streams when I was a kid, and I'm catching, more smallmouth now than I was back then. So I don't think that the snakehead that was caught at the same dam, a week after really did anything, because I'm still catching. So I think it's a lot of fantastic stories in the news. The fish that can crawl, it can walk across land. It's so dangerous. And everyone's like, kill it, kill it, kill it. I think you get the same type of, mob mentality when it comes to some of these other things where it just doesn't really make sense.
There is a tier list definitely about the worst of the worst versus that. And it's funny because I would not put snakeheads as number one. I think blue cats would definitely be a strong contender for what they've done. But yeah, the snakehead is fascinating, man. Like I cover them so much on the channel because in our area and yours, basically, it's got a cult following. It's the underground punk rock edgy thing to do. And I wish someone could write a small book about it, because it's fascinating going from it's going to eat your dogs and kill your children to it's the punk rock kayak thing to do, go catch a dragon. In less than 20 years, that's a heck of a cycle for a story.
Right. I haven't caught my first one yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I haven't. I've only tried a couple of times just walking. I haven't taken the kayak out for him yet, but I am planning on doing that this summer. I just honestly have to find a place that doesn't quarantine kayaks, that has them, that's close to me. Because a lot of, some of them ones near here, you have to quarantine your kayaks, and you can't leave because they're afraid of the mussels and everything like that.
Oh, zebra mussels?
Yep. They're afraid of all that stuff, so they don't want to contaminate the water. So,
which that's a fascinating thing about, like Jurassic Park Life Finding a Way, where they didn't like zebra mussels, but the off effect is they filtered and cleaned out the water to where the Great Lakes are cleaner than they've ever been. Candlewood, I think, has them, and like that place is gin clear. So it's, I'm not saying right or wrong, but it's interesting, that nuanced thing of it finds a way, because you get those in there, then all of a sudden the water gets cleaner, then all of a sudden the SAV comes back. Right. It's fascinating how ecosystems try to self-heal themselves with stuff like that.
Yeah, they do. And thank God, because we don't do a lot to help.
No.
In a lot of cases, you look at the entire oyster effort in New York, the $1 billion, or the billion oyster project, where they want to put 1 billion oysters back in the water. And it's taking them forever, but it'll correct itself.
It will. And I think it's good intentions, but it's bureaucracy. Like, wasn't there a bridge in California for animals that was trying to be built, and it's like $1 trillion now? And it's like, we could do that in a week.
Yeah.
But we have an organization down here, like the CCA, Chesapeake Bay Association, or Chesapeake Conservation Association, building artificial reefs for oysters. And it was fun prepping for those episodes. And I went down a YouTube rabbit hole of like, there's oyster pirates in Tangier and what it used to be. And it's like, that is wild. I didn't know about this history from New York all the way through the Chesapeake Bay.
I've been reading a lot of Chesapeake Bay history over the past few years. It is amazing the stuff that stuff you can learn about the Chesapeake and the East Coast, the Eastern Coast down there. It's the Eastern Shore. It's amazing. It's amazing to think. Yeah, Tangier. I spent a lot of time going down rabbit holes around Tangier. I was absolutely fascinated by it. Absolutely. Yeah. So, all right. Well, so listen, we're about 35 minutes in. We've got to talk some fish. So look, let's just sum it up. I think really the goal of this is people need to realize that there's a lot that's negatively affecting the Chesapeake. It comes down to, what are you putting on your lawn if you live in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, because it will end up there. It gets down to these dams and the funding for the dams. Conowingo is just a convenient one to bring up because it's big and it is a documented issue. The algae blooms from all this biological material, but people need to know that the cost of these wonderful Maryland crabs have gone up because the dissolved oxygen levels have gone down, and they've been pushed out of the deep water and into the shallow water. And the problem with that is they're not supposed to be in the shallow hot water, right? So it stunts them. It kills the baby crabs. It impacts the spawn rates and the recruitment for striped bass. All of these things, and it all comes from things like the runoff. It comes from the sewers and these continuous Baltimore leaks that are going straight into the Chesapeake. it goes to so many different things. And I think people just need to kind of, think about it and open up to it, because it seems that fishermen don't get upset until it directly impacts them. But the problem is, when you're talking about an ecosystem, is by the time you feel it, it's too late. And now you've gone the way of the weak fish, and it's going to take 20 years for you to claw it back. And a lot of luck goes into you being successful with that.
Yeah. And I think context is always important, because I don't like to go super depressing and dour, especially with the world the way it is. But I had one guy come on, he said something crazy, which is like, the bay's not on fire anymore. And he meant like back in the Nixon administration, when they put in all these laws, like, the Potomac would catch on fire. The Ohio River would catch on fire. I think Delaware, the story was it would flow the color of whatever they were painting the fire trucks upstream. And so if that was the worst it was ever, this is us on the uptick, and we're still not there yet. So just to get in context, we're going the right direction. But the point was, we cratered so deep, 30, 40 years ago. It's taken this long to claw back to where we are now.
Yeah. I mean, you can, to bring it for a lot of my viewers, New Jersey coast, and I think Jim Hutchinson has brought this up before. It's not like the days where we had the plastic whistles, but it used to be just garbage.
Yeah.
And needles and everything washing up on the beaches. That's not what it is anymore. But back when that started to happen, we also had a very vibrant Delaware Bay fishery for fluke, for striped bass, legendary fishing for striped bass out at the rips, the Cape May rips, and that's all gone. And it's still gone, and it's because of what happened back then. And I think that's really my point. It is better. You can go fishing there again. Can't go for striped bass, but you can go fishing for fluke in the Delaware Bay again and have a good chance of getting some decent fish. But it's still a very, very long road back to where it was in the early 80s and late 70s. We're nowhere near that point yet. We still have a long way to go.
Yeah, but we're going in the right direction, and you just got to keep chopping wood with it. That's the biggest thing. People just need to keep getting educated and and especially if you're out there, take a video. I have so many people that said, "Hey, listen, I saw this. Like, do you have proof?" It's like, no, you just got to take my word on it. It's like, no one, that's not how this works in 2026. Everyone has an iPhone 19. Take a quick video if you see a leak or something dumping stuff, a video, and then you can send it to the proper authorities so they can actually come take a look at it.
Yeah, yeah. Or send it to me, and I'll put it out on a live stream. We'll try to shame people into doing something about it. Yeah, I agree. There is no excuse. Pics or it didn't happen is pretty much the standard nowadays. And everybody should be. I mean, my mom, who's in her 70s, can take pictures on her phone. Not well, but she can take them. So I think everybody else can. So, and I've seen all your fish pics too, everybody.
Because we live in the real world, so let's be adults about it. The only thing that people understand is lawsuits. And when you're talking about big corporate America, the only thing they're going to feel is if you bring a lawsuit and you have proof to say, like, you did this thing and these are the damages you did to the ecosystem. And as much as we want to do like a hashtag thing on YouTube or TikTok, that's not what they're going to feel. That's not the pain they're going to feel. You need to hit them in their wallet.
Yeah. Well, that it's funny you mentioned that. So we go back, you can look at the windmills off in New Jersey. Huge hashtag campaigns, but and it's great, but nobody did anything. I shouldn't say nobody. 99% of those people that were all up in arms about how they didn't want the windmills never showed up for a meeting, never did anything to help. There were just a few people that were at the core of it that really worked hard to try to stop it and worked to file lawsuits and worked to lobby at the highest levels of the government. But yeah, to your point, the hashtags are great if you just want to if you just want to, virtue signal, but there's got to be more to it. And the more evidence there is, the more likely that somebody's going to pick that up and do something with it. It doesn't have to be you, but if you can feed the evidence to people, somebody will take it and do something with it.
Amen. Yep. Amen.
All right, let's talk fishing. All right. Stuff. Yeah. Have you been out anytime recently?
I've been a little bit gearing up really for the spring push here with everything. I'm going to be doing a big old going to Fredericksburg, down to the Elizabeth River. We're going to be going a bunch of places this year now that we're done with expo season.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're a pro, so you're all in the middle of that. I think I went to one show this year, and that's it. And
you were lucky. I think I did 6.
I have fun at them, but I only have fun if I meet up with people. I don't like just walking around by myself. I'm not that guy that goes up and likes, I'm, despite having a podcast, I'm not the extrovert that goes up and introduces myself to people. I'm just not. So unless people go, I feel very uncomfortable, just walking around, just like, oh, I see that. No,
yeah, I wish I was that way, but I am very much, I'm a talker. I'm a people person. So if you guys don't know, I basically live stream and do meet and greets at Expo. So we start in January and we just wrapped up here in like early March. And so now it's like taking a breather, pre-recording content, because I do mostly pre-recorded shows, getting that loaded up before I actually go out and have fun again. New Jersey Expo. I want to go to New Jersey. The Virginia Beach one, I'm going to put on the rotation for next year because that's a cool bay versus open water, kind of different cultures kind of blend together, which is what's fun about expos. Honestly, it's almost like a culture clash where you get everyone's different niche coming together for a weekend.
So there's one actually L suggested in chat. I'm going to throw it up there for you. Edison, New Jersey Expo.
Ooh.
So that's one that I did want to go to. There are two that I really always want to go to. There's the Oaks/Philadelphia show, which is in Oaks, Pennsylvania. And I go to that because it's literally in my backyard. I can be there in 15 minutes. And then there's Edison, which I really wanted to go to, but I hurt my back and I couldn't go. There's no way I could have walked around. I still can't. But that's one that I wish I had gone to. And I'll tell you what, I live vicariously through everybody, right? So if I can't hit the water or do something, I am just stalking their social media to see. And man, it looked like a great show. I didn't hear anything that wasn't positive about that show. And that was one that a few years ago I thought was iffy, but it's gotten better and better. And everybody I've talked to, not just people that were there with a booth, just people going, they absolutely loved it. So it seems to me that I'm going to be heading to Edison for the next one. And that's one that I would recommend, that if you want to come north a bit, that would be one to go to.
I just wrote it down on my little notepad here. I'll have to add that to the rotation.
Yeah, it's got a good reputation. I don't think it's the absolute best venue, but it's a great show. And I think that's what says a lot about it. It's just a great place. Great place to go.
What would you consider your primary species up there this time of year? Is it pickerel? Is it tog? Like what is it right now?
So I will tell you, saltwater right now, it's striped bass because it just opened in the backwaters on the 1st of March. So the saltwater and the brackish, it's going to be striped bass followed by white perch. You got winter flounder. It's a very niche species to target, but the diehards are going to be all about the winter flounder. As far as freshwater, it's really still, where you're allowed to fish for them, it's trout. I mean, the trout fishing is great in the early part of the year. Now you've got a lot of closings because they're starting to stock different areas. So you can't fish certain stocked areas, but yeah, that's really what we've got going on. And then it'll change over once fluke season opens around the beginning of May in most of the states. You got Delaware, it's always open, but hell, if I lived in Delaware, I'd be fishing for them today. They're there. So why not? But yeah, but as you did mention pickerel, I have seen a lot of folks that I'm connected with catching some nice pickerel.
That is another tribe that's fun. I'm going to be doing a show on because for my club member Patreon tournaments I do, everyone wants pickerel as a side pot fish, and I'm like, are pickerel big in Maryland? And the amount of people that are like, oh, dude, like it's a thing. Go to Jersey or Maryland, and again, because you can't be a part of every tribe, you can't know every species, so it's fun that you get to learn about it. But yeah, like that's wild that you have this little ferocious Chihuahua pike, and it's so big in Maryland and New Jersey, and apparently there's some places in Virginia that have some hot spots for them. So who knew for me? Yeah,
so I've never caught a pickerel, never tried, but it is a big fish to target, especially New Jersey. Some really nice ones that I'm seeing getting pulled out of New Jersey too. Yeah, it's not my thing. I'd like to go for them at some point, but I kind of got my focus for this year, and pickerel's not on it.
What's your top 4 that you want to get?
Well, so for freshwater, it's definitely snakeheads, but that's not going to be like my core thing. I definitely want to gain some experience doing that. I want to go largemouth and smallmouth is the most fun, but I've never really targeted largemouth. So I want to do that. So really it's and trout. Trout is going to be the big one for the year for me. So summer, I won't be catching a ton of them, but I'm also going to be doing saltwater mostly in the summer. So it kind of fits into my calendar. Yeah, but for me, it's going to be fluke. Fluke is number 1. They're so boring to reel in, but I love just trying to hook the big ones. I like the hunt. Striped bass, I'm not doing any right now. I just physically can't. So maybe that'll be a fall thing for me. And I'm going to try again to get into sheep's head. I'm going to try again. I just can't. It's just not my type of fishing. So Tog is always there. You know what? I can't stand. So where I fish in the tidal waters, it's really strong currents. You're up against structure. So you're typically up against a bridge piling, and you're just vertical fishing and just sitting and waiting. And these guys that go out there that I fish with, they're like, "Oh, you want to go?" I'm like, "Sure." And we'll show up and I'm done in an hour. And they're on the same piling. I'm like, "Oh my God, how do you guys I can't do it." So I just reel it up and start fishing for fluke or something. I can't do it. It's so much work just to stay on those pilings and everything. So
especially if you don't have like a motor or something, that it's got to be a nightmare for the guys that pedal or paddle.
Yeah. So paddling, it can be okay. You just if you can get the current right and the rudder right, you just slow pedal straight into it and you fish right off the bow. But you know what? It takes just one little turn and all of a sudden the current hits you and you're swinging and you're spinning out of there. So it's just not my favorite thing to do. I'd much rather be fishing for tog. Much rather be fishing for tog than sheep's head. So I shouldn't say that because our main sponsor, Great Bay Outfitters, that's the owner's favorite fish to go for. I always make fun of it, but
which do you think eats better, tog or sheep's head?
You mean as far as the fight?
No, it tastes better.
Oh, tastes better. It's got to be tog. It's got to be tog. Yeah. I've never had, I haven't had a lot of sheep's head. I think I've just tasted it a couple times. Tog is my favorite fish of all. So I put that above everything.
I think tog is going to probably do it for me, but by a hair, because I really do. Now, I think snakehead is probably my number 3. Probably favorite.
Never had a snakehead.
Dude, okay, yeah. That's got to be your number 1 then. Snakehead is insanely good. And it's a freshwater fish, and it tastes like a saltwater fish. It's really weird how good it is. It shouldn't be as good as it is.
Well, if I can find an area that I trust to eat out of, I'll have one this year then. But a lot of the streams up here, I wouldn't eat anything out of them. I mean, they're pretty bad, pretty bad in my area.
And this is the interesting thing about the snakehead is they breathe air.
Yeah.
So that's why they don't get polluted, is they live in cruddy places, but they don't have the issue like a catfish tastes like where it comes from because it filter feeds and stuff. Snakehead, they did studies because I'm friends with Odenkirk who ran the snakehead task force when it started. If they put a glass piece on the top of the aquarium so the snakehead can't breathe, it'll drown. And it's just a fascinating thing about that creature. But I think that's kind of one is why it hides in sneaky places, because it can survive places other animals can't.
Okay. I didn't realize that it'll drown.
Yeah. That's why they gulp air. They kiss air.
I didn't know they had to.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus. That's
why they can crawl on land.
Yeah. Well, no, I know that they can. I didn't know that they had to. You know what I mean? I didn't know that they had to. I just thought that for survival, they could. That's interesting.
And also think about what the hardest conditions to catch them in is in choppy water because it's harder for them to breathe. So they kind of hunker down.
That makes sense.
That fancy word I cannot say in chat. I'm sorry. I'm not good with the King's English, let alone Italian. Labyrinthian breathers. Yes, that word.
Labyrinth. Elle's a teacher. So she's actually, I'll say right now, she's coming on next week, everybody. We're going to talk winter flounder. So here's a question. How do you prepare the snakehead?
Oh, I mean, you got to go fish tacos. Dice them up, put them in a marinade. And a little bit of Old Bay for my Marylanders. I'm sorry. Then I have a pickled onion recipe. I go pickled onions, pickled jalapeno, toast the tortilla of your choice when you're going to do corn or flour. And then, just blacken them real quick and then throw them on there. The best, because it's a very white, thick meat. So dicing, it's very easy. I've heard some people do like ceviche if you're kind of into that, but it's not my vibe.
Not mine either. My brother, he's in the chat. That's his vibe. It's not mine. I love the blackened fish tacos. Definitely. I haven't had it with snakehead though. So what are you going to be targeting over the next 2 months? If you could do anything.
Oh my goodness. If I could do anything, I would go down to the Eastern Shore. I'm hopefully going to do a month-long sabbatical this summer. I'm going to hit the Eastern Shore. The Eastern Shore from really Assateague down is the last Wild West place on the East Coast. There's 5 people that live there. And
so you want to know something funny? My wife and I are looking at that area to buy a house and move.
Really?
Yes, for that very reason. So keep going. I want to hear what you have to say.
I just keep talking to more and more salt guys, and the way they talk about this is almost like in tales of like what people first saw in like the African Sahara, and they bring back these like acres upon acres of eelgrass beds, and there's like you won't see a person, and every species is there, whether it's trout, reds, maybe a silver king or two, sharks, everything's there, and there's nobody. It's so weird that area next to, from New Jersey, Baltimore, DC, Philly, all these hubs, Norfolk, the biggest military base on the planet for the Navy. And then you have this little sliver of a peninsula, and there's like 5 people that live on it.
Yeah.
So I really want to check out that place. I have not caught a redfish or a speck from a kayak.
Really?
I caught one that was the size of my arm. I'm not counting that as a red. Yeah. I really want to go toe to toe with that. I've caught so many striper as a kid, and that's fun. But the light tackle version of things, where you get pulled around on a kayak, is addicting, and I really want to experience that in the bay.
Yeah. Well, have you thought about Kip to Peak?
Ooh, I have not.
I mean, I would think about that. I mean, you've got you're close enough to the bridge where you're going to have a lot of actually cobia there too. You pick up cobia at Kip to Peak.
I don't know how those people do that. Like, those people that catch marlin out of a kayak. Like, I'm crazy, but like there is an extent there with that stuff that just gets wild. Some fish they pull.
Yeah, I've got some friends that live in Florida, and they're out there, pulling in sailfish on their kayaks, and they pedal out to them because it's close enough. It's like if you go to the Outer Banks and you go out for big game fishing. It's like it was 30-minute steam. New Jersey, it's like 4 hours, 5 hours.
And it's also, I know it doesn't happen a lot, but the shark epidemic in some of these places, we're like, dude, like, I don't want to be out in a kayak in some of those places. I had somebody on a year ago, and he had the back end of his kayak smoked by a bull shark. And it's like, dude, no, check, please. I'm not going to deal with possibly dealing with that.
I'm trying to get a mothership trip going where we do go off for tuna and for mahi and everything, go like 40, 50 miles offshore. But that's a mothership trip. So you have a big boat within a mile or two of you. So if anything goes sideways, you're just on your radio with like, help.
Yeah, that's smart.
And they're coming to get you. That's a whole different thing. Yeah, I always get nervous when I see these guys getting chased by sharks and the sharks hitting him. There was a guy, I don't remember who it was, fishing in Florida, and he for some reason, he insisted on trying to land this shark that was as big as his kayak. And it didn't make any sense to me. And it kept hitting the kayak and knocking it sideways. I'm like, just cut the freaking line. It's only 3 feet away from you. Cut the line.
Mm-hmm.
And he wouldn't cut it. And it almost dumped him twice. And somebody in a boat came over and was like, yo, dude, just stop. You can't keep fighting that thing. But it was as big as his kayaks. It was probably a 10 to 12 footer.
Yeah.
He's fishing it.
And that's a whole other bag of worms that you go down. Is there is a shark epidemic. There 100% is, at least over the United States waters, that will at some point have to be addressed. I mean, I know y'all have white pointers now coming down from the Maine area more, and we have a seal population sprouting up. It's in North Carolina. And so that's going to bring down some white pointers and some bigger ones. And when you're catching great whites from Floridian beaches, this is a sign that there's something wrong with the ecosystem necessarily, that you could have too many apex predators potentially. But
yeah, well, you can't, a whole different topic. You can't, all the sea mammals are protected. They're exploding. So, I mean, they've got their food source there, and the seals come into these harbors and they hang out on the beaches, and it's just going to bring the sharks in.
Yeah. But, and I used to go swimming out way far off the beach when I was a kid. If I had it, I would not let my kid do anything like that anymore. It's a different world now with some of that stuff. Like I used to wade fish in the Florida, where you tie the kayak behind you and just wade in waist deep water. Yeah. Nowadays, I would no way in hell I would do that.
Oh, really?
Everglades.
In the Everglades, I probably wouldn't. I still like to go offshore.
I just have the theme song in the back of my head now. I've had enough run-ins with them. It's like, not worth throwing those dice on the table.
Yeah. I tend to use a stringer. So I've got bleeding fish over the side too. So I have a few videos of me pulling them. I forget about it. I'm like, it's only going to take like 2 or 3 minutes for it to bleed out. I'll throw it in the cooler. Next thing I know, it's 40 minutes later and a shark's coming at me. I'm like, at least it's a small one. I've never had a really big shark come after it. But
what is big though for you? Like,
I think the biggest one was maybe 5 feet.
That is a big animal.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you look at it, its mouth is, it's not gonna do anything to the kayak. It's not big enough to tip me.
Oh, you're a kayak. Okay, you're not waiting. Gotcha.
No, not waiting. No.
You're very nonchalant about that.
No, the only time I had an issue wading with sharks was in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I was wade fishing with my buddy Brad, and we were out past the breakers, and it was like neck deep, and we're just rods over our heads. But we had fish on stringers that were hanging off of our necks, and some sharks came in. We're like, oh, damn, and they're behind us now, and we're like, we gotta move, because they're, so we had to let the fish go off the stringers. We weren't going to drag them in with us, but there were a lot of them, and they were plus 6 feet swimming around. They were probably just, brown sharks, weren't going to do anything to us, but it scared the hell out of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've never done that again. No, no, thanks. Nope. No. Well, listen, hey, I want to thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. It's a great topic for people to be aware of. It's great that we got to talk a little fishing too. Everybody, make sure, if you are not following Fishing the DMV yet, I'm telling you right now, you're going to love it. It's just great information, great episodes, very entertaining, and it's professionally done, which is nice. And it's not, as I said at the beginning, it's not, hey, look at me type of fishing channel. It's not about you. It's about the content. And I appreciate that. I think it's great. And it's something that I hope to be able to pull off over the long term with this channel. So thanks again for coming on.
Well, thank you so much for having me, man. Yeah, keep chopping wood of the YouTube algorithm, and you're going to get there, because you got to go niche, because it's sad that nationally people don't care about our area, which sucks. But there's so many opportunities all up and down the East Coast. And the niches are so cool. Like, I didn't know there was trout and smallmouth in New Jersey. And, it's not just dead bodies and corporate stuff. Like, so it's so cool that there's so many neat things in this whole area.
Yeah, people like to say Florida is where all the East Coast fishing is. It's not. And, New Jersey and New York are just underrated as examples. And, man, you could do an entire summer road trip just fishing the mid-Atlantic and never get bored, and just have stories and just great fish and great times throughout the entire area. And people just don't get it. That's why I don't know if you ever watch Nick Honashevsky, his show. He just focuses on this area almost exclusively. He'll do his trips outside of the area, but you watch that and calls it the underground. Well, it is, because nobody knows about it, but you should. If you're not from this area, you don't know about it, but you're missing out. You're definitely missing out.
You are. So guys, if you aren't, subscribe to his channel too, to learn everything about what's going on in the Jersey area.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you again for coming on, everyone. We will be back next week. Heaven and Elle is going to be on. We're going to talk winter flounder, and other things, as we always do when Ella's on the stream. So thanks everyone for tuning in. And the weather's getting a little bit better. I always look out the window when I do that. It's pitch black, I can't tell, but the weather's getting a little better than it was. So if you're able to, get out there, get on the water, get some tight lines.